This is Xavier Hawk with the Thunderbirds Global Action Team. We're here in Venus, Florida, about to interview Jacque Fresco from the Venus Project. They've got a vision of the future that is out of this world. And we're going to check out what that means for you, for me, and for all people, all sentient beings, and the Earth. Let's go check them out. So, how are you doing?
Great.
You can introduce us?
Thanks for the privilege of presenting these concepts. Have you seen the documentary? Zeitgeist?
Yes.
The second one?
Yes.
Okay, this is great. I'm going to try to tell you what the Venus Project is about. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pull any punches. I don't want approval. I just want people to listen to what I say, think about it, and then join with us or ask relevant questions. But if you say things like, it'll never work, I can't do anything with that. But if you point out specific areas, say, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about that? Bring it up specifically. All right, so here goes on the Venus Project. I've lived through the last Depression. There were 15 million people sleeping in every empty lot across America. And there were still things in store windows, radios, washing machines, everything. They didn't have the money. The banks failed. They bought new houses. They bought cars. And when the banks failed, they couldn't pay them off. They couldn't get money. So they were kicked out. And every empty lot in America, there were millions of people sleeping. And of course, at that time, immediately, the government didn't have any relief programs. So Al Capone, the gangster, opened more soup kitchens than the federal government. Isn't that interesting? Right. The government also promised war veterans World War I $600 when they got out of the army to start life anew. Well, of course, the government didn't have that money after the war. So thousands of veterans marched on Washington. They were sleeping again all around the Capitol. And the government offered them IOUs, but you can't eat that. You can't pay your rent with that. So they marched and they said, we want the $600 you promised us. And so the Senate and the House of Representatives didn't like all these veterans sleeping around Washington. So they said to Doug MacArthur, get them out of there. It looks bad. So he had tear gas thrown at the veterans. See, these are things that are not in your school books. Your school books are BS, and they're made to get people in line. So all your history books have all kinds of men in government always doing the right thing, always saying things nicely. Those are not real people. Real people make mistakes. They do foolish things. And so a history book is made to look good. And of course, if you educate people to think, you can't control them. So you're educated not to think in school. You're programmed to uphold existing institutions. What's the greatest country in the world? The good old USA. The real thing is great in what area? Where did we get this land? We took it by force and violence from people that already lived here, 50 million of them, and we drove them into the desert regions. Then we took California and New Mexico by force. After we stole all the land we needed, we put up the sign, thou shalt not steal. Of course, England did the same thing. They say the sun never sets on England. Where do you think they got that land? They took it, and they went into other countries not to help them, but to exploit them. And this is the story of all countries. They are all corrupt.
So that brings up the question, is it human nature to be warlike and
I'm going to answer all those things for you. So, in order to eliminate most of the problems that exist today, we have to declare the earth and all its resources as the common heritage of all the world's people. As long as you got private property, where did you get that from? Where did England get it from? Where did France get it from? They took many islands of the South Pacific, and they abused other nations. They went in not to help them, but to exploit their resources. So all the wars that have ever existed are phony. None of them are real. None of them are based on anything. I'm going to back it up. I'll give you detail. A friend of mine was a pilot in World War I. He flew over German munition dumps 8 times, and he told me he was ordered not to bomb them. He could not understand that. After the war, there was a book which is very hard to get. I suggest you look for it. Arms and the Men. That's the name of the book. It was also run in Fortune magazine years ago. And it showed how DuPont had holdings in I.J. Farben. That's why I didn't bomb it.
Right.
That's what I mean by war is corrupt. Not only corrupt in the sense of killing people, it's worthless. Doesn't solve any problems. So I'm going to try to point out what a real war would mean. If war were real, you would draft people, but you take all the war industries, conscript them all, so no one makes a buck out of war, then it's real. But if you sell war tanks, jeeps, trucks, guns, machine guns, cannons, submarines, airplanes, big business. War has always been highly profitable. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. So it isn't that we outlaw war. What we have to do is ask the question, what makes war? What makes serial killers? What makes crime? So when I say all governments are corrupt, I meant that, all of them, because they operate in a money system, and a monetary system or money system is basically corrupt. That goes for religion too. All religion brought up in a monetary system caters to that system. If you don't understand me, there are movies you can get, very old movies on World War II. You'll see the Catholic Church blessing war tanks in this country and Italy at the same time. So you do all the blessing you can. So this has nothing to do with the Christ teachings. Now when you think of the concept of God, at least the one they give you, is that God is omnipotent, knows everything, created everything, every galaxy, every universe, and every bug and every plant, everything. And if he knows everything, they usually think in terms of telling him what to do all the time. So when you consider Christ, who was the teacher, a kind and good person, just before they crucified him, he insulted God. He looked up and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. You don't have to tell that to God. That's an insult. It's like telling Einstein 10 and 10 is 20. So everybody's always telling God what to do. I have an Aunt Minnie, she's sick, she has a tumor, and she's suffering. Please, God, ease the pain. They assume he doesn't know a damn thing. They're always telling him, I'm growing corn, but it didn't rain for 3 months, and my corn is drying up. They're always begging and pointing things out. The God that created, that man creates, is more like man. He gets angry, gets pissed off, creates floods and disease, and then if you don't follow his teachings, you burn eternally. This is not God. This is a psychopath made by man. All religions have made God in the image of man. They cannot conceive of an intelligence far beyond their own. So I'm telling you that religion is a control device, attempting to control behavior by telling you what not to do. For example, God doesn't hang a penis on a male and say, don't use it until you get married. The day you got married, bingo, it would pop up. So you see, you live in a pretty sick world that makes everything around the notions of man. Man has a heaven, and he's got angels with wings. Really, they don't need wings to fly around. If they flew around without them, that would be a miracle.